Hey, good to see you. Daren Lindley here, and I just want to share with you some more of my story of how Jesus has been transforming my life for my entire life. And, that's the beautiful thing about the gospel. The scripture says he takes us from darkness to light. But, once he takes you from darkness to light, he does a whole lot more transforming. In fact, the scripture says he takes us then from glory to glory. So it goes from awesome to awesomer. So I want to share with you a little bit about my journey. So last video, I was telling you how I fell in love with Jesus. And it was really a totally transformative moment in my life. I remember standing out waiting for the bus in the rain. We lived out in the country east of Springfield in the Mohawk Valley. And I'd be waiting for the school bus to come. And I'd be standing there, and I really didn't want the bus to get there because I was having fun standing there just saying, Jesus, I love you. I love you, Jesus. I love you, Jesus. And just loving Jesus became so incredible to me. It was nourishing. It was like I was so well fed spiritually just by loving Jesus. And so anyway, as I was doing this, honestly, when you fall in love with Jesus, you become a nicer human being. And I was just more kind. I was caring for other people more. It transforms you. I'm by no means perfect. I am a wicked sinner, as wicked as the next guy. But I tell you what, it is amazing how often the love of Jesus does come through. I've had lots of times when I've been at a grocery store and I've been walking around the grocery store loving Jesus. I get to the checkout and the checker says, literally said, "Why are you different?" And it was kind of a strange thing to hear. And I say, well, I just really like Jesus, that's about all I can tell you. And so anyway, my life was being transformed. Well, I felt the Lord call me into ministry back when I was about 17. I'll tell you that story sometime. But as I was called into ministry, I went in and became a junior high youth pastor at a church in Eugene, started going to pastors' conferences, and I started getting all the stuff weighing me down. They were telling me, you got to pray an hour a day, you got to read through the Bible once a year, and if you don't do these things, you're not a good Christian. Well, I am not that kind of guy, to be honest with you. I'm not like Mr. Organized, do something every single day type of person. That's just not my style. I'm much more motivated by passion than I am by what people would call discipline. And so I just wasn't that kind of guy. And so it was in the 80s, and I'd been in ministry now for a long time, for about 10 years or 12 years. And I remember the Jimmy Swaggart and Jim Bakker had just crashed and burned. And it was a really sad time in Christianity because these guys were iconic, major hitters. And boom, they fell in a very sad way, both of them for immorality issues. And I know it sounds, some of you might say, well, why would you ever follow a guy like that? Well, honestly, he was a fantastic speaker, and at least his style was, if you could get into the style. But anyway, I was into it. And I thought, holy cow, if Jimmy Swaggart can't make it, then what's my chance of making it? And I thought, you know what? I know why these guys didn't make it, because they weren't praying an hour a day. And I need to start doing that, because if you're not spiritually disciplined, you're going to crash and you're going to burn. Well, so I got this book, and it was telling you how to change your life by praying an hour a day. And it was systemized into this thing where you do something for 5 minutes. So you would thank the Lord for 5 minutes, and you'd praise for 5 minutes, and you'd intercede for somebody for 5 minutes, and then you would petition and all these different things you do for 5 minutes. And I literally got a watch so I could time myself for 5 minutes. It was tormenting. I mean, it was the most unbelievably unpleasant thing that I think I've ever done in my life. And the thing that's weird is I have experienced Jesus. I mean, I have experienced life and encouragement and hope and goodness. I dig that. And but I would start into this prayer time. It was like Jesus went away. I mean, there was no presence of God whatsoever. And so I started getting frustrated. I'd been doing this for 2-3 weeks. I did everything, man. I tried to get, super into it. And, it just was very, very unpleasant. And so I thought, man, Lord, I'm trying to pray and you're not even showing up. I mean, I know what the presence of God feels like and you aren't here. And the weird thing is I would stop and about 20 minutes later, I'd feel the presence of Jesus. I could feel God, but I didn't feel him when I was praying. I was like, what is going on here? And I said to the Lord one day, I said, Jesus, I don't think you're helping me. And if you're not helping me to do this prayer thing, well, then I'm not doing it because you're supposed to help me. And so I said, you know what? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go back to where I was when I was a kid, just loving you. And I'm just going to love you with all my heart. And I'm going to carry around a New Testament in my pocket. It was long before the days of phones where we had our Bibles on our phones. And so I'd carry a little paper New Testament in my right pocket and my wallet in my left pocket and balance out my back so I didn't have back problems. And I thought I'd carry my little New Testament around with me. And then if Jesus wants to make me read the Bible, I'm cool with that. Make me. So Lord, please, I ask you to make me read the Bible. And so a funny thing happened. As I would be walking around, I'd see somebody with a Christian t-shirt on and have some scripture. And I would wonder about the context of the scripture. And it would just intrigue me. So I'd pull out my little New Testament and I'd read that scripture. And I'd see the context of it. And I go, oh, that's interesting. And then these thoughts would start to come. And what I found was, while I was doing all the stuff you're supposed to do, I was probably supposed to memorize scripture, supposed to read my Bible, supposed to do all these things, I couldn't memorize scripture. I couldn't make myself read the Bible, and I couldn't stand prayer. All of a sudden, I'm cruising around, and all day long, I'm just going, I love you, Jesus. I love you, Jesus. I'm feeling closer to Jesus than I ever have. All of a sudden, scripture, from seeing it around or something would pop into my mind and I have to look it up. And all of a sudden, the scripture started to stick in my mind like never before. I mean, big quantities of scripture. I never intentionally memorized anything. In fact, I have never intentionally memorized a scripture since 1989. And I got so much scripture in my head and really, honestly, in my heart it's kind of incredible. But I never, ever tried to memorize it. And all of a sudden, my life was transformed. Suddenly I found I'm reading the Bible more than I ever have. I'm praying more than I ever have. If loving Jesus is praying, it didn't look like what they said I was supposed to do, but I didn't really care. And all of a sudden, the fruit of Jesus was starting to pour out of my life. And I started to wonder something. What if being a Christian is the simplest thing in all of the universe? What if being a Christian isn't about all the rules and regulations and do this and don't do that? What if it's simply about being in love with Jesus? And then the greatest commandment popped into my mind. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your strength. And all the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. Love God and love your neighbor. It's kind of an interesting thought right there. And so I am praying that you will be inspired to just go to Jesus and fall in love with him and let him pour his goodness into you. I hope you have a fantastic day and look forward to talking with you soon.